Okay, I'm going to tell you about my near-death experiences, plural. Now, normally you hear the believer say, well, my near-death experience had a light, angels. My near-death experience at the end had a big doctor's bill. and it made me want to die after seeing it, actually. But let me explain what I mean here. Life and death as an atheist. Here are my main points. Thinking about death has made me a better atheist. Secondly, experiencing near death has made me a better person, I hope, and an advocate of dying with dignity. So, Genesis. I was born in Nogales, Sonora, Mexico, right on the border with Arizona. It's a small hilly desert town with a railroad in the middle. Now it's very different. It's a big sprawling, full of shanty towns, full of drug. That's not the Nogales I knew. It's on the border with Arizona. I don't know how many of you have been there now, but I was born in a house made of mud, yes. There were mud bricks made by our neighbor. And eventually we were better off and plaster was added to that mud brick. But still we had no running water. We did have electricity, which made us better than some of our neighbors there. I lived pretty much in the 19th century because we had burros. Burros were animals that brought up our groceries. They brought up a lot of our building materials. And we kept chickens. We used a wood stove, kerosene heaters. Might as well live in the 19th century. That's my front yard, by the way, there. And this is my neighborhood. So people made houses of whatever materials they made, like tin. So the person that lived in that tin house up there is actually the guy that built our house. And my two female cousins that you see there, it's me kneeling there and my brother, actually were even poorer. They lived in one room, no electricity, no running water, and a dirt floor. They were dirt poor. And so we still were a little better off than they were. I was raised in a very religious family. It was a Pentecostal family. And if you know anything about the history of Mexico, Mexico historically has been Catholic. We were on the front wave of Pentecostalism in northern Mexico, which made us a minority in the neighborhood and in the city. And of course, we believed in eternal life that awaited the faithful and hellfire if you were sinful. All entertainment was sinful. Movies, rock, anything that you had fun with, we were against. So, women were not supposed to cut their hair, wear makeup, and Bible reading was central. So, I grew up reading the Bible since I was about 3 or 4. The school I went to was very small, very poor. The teacher was so poor that we had the students rotate lunch for her because she couldn't afford lunch for herself. So every day, maybe somebody would bring lunch and rotate it. Had no real playground, none of the amenities at American schools. In fact, in a few years back, I started a scholarship for the school so they could buy certain things for themselves. Then one day, I was taken from that neighborhood you saw to the United States by my grandmother, who you see in that picture, and with me and my younger brother there. And it was to keep her company because she was a live-in housekeeper for this upper-class, middle-income family in Scottsdale, Arizona, which was an extremely wealthy neighborhood. Not so much then as it is now. So this is 1964. I actually showed you a picture that's out of chronology because I went back to Mexico for that school you saw and then did my first 2 years of school in that school. So the reason she came to America, my grandmother, who's a pioneer in her story, is extremely fascinating, actually. Is because she had a daughter, my Aunt Gloria, who, as a baby, contracted some illness that we still don't know. The medical care was not that good in Mexico. We still don't have a diagnosis, possibly meningitis. And she remained a quadriplegic, non-communicative, verbally non-communicative, and bedridden until the age of 15 when she died. And I was there when she died. So I had experience with people dying and not being able to care for themselves very early. Now, when I came to the U.S., I soon became a child evangelist and faith healer. I gave a sermon at a major convention of hundreds at the age of 9. And this is in 1968. I prayed for the sick, many of whom said they were healed through my prayers. And I witnessed what I thought were resurrections. So, when Christian apologists talk to me about the resurrection, it doesn't impress me that much because we had them in our church like routinely. So, then in 1969, my grandmother became a live-in maid for a retired cotton farmer in Glendale, Arizona. And then that's when science began to interest me. The Apollo missions were going on at that time. And so I started to be interested in science and want to become kind of a scientist. I lived near a library and checked out a whole bunch of books, college-level textbooks on chemistry, physics. And I got it in my head that I was going to be a physicist. And when I wanted to do something, I didn't want to be a physicist or a chemist. I wanted to be the greatest physicist that ever lived, or the greatest chemist that ever lived, right? So I was actually admitted to college in the 7th grade. And the reason I was admitted is because one day I rode up my bike to the Glendale Community College and knocked on the Dean of Admissions door. And I said, I wonder if you could let me into your college. And he says, why? You're in the 7th grade, And I said, well, I read a lot of college-level textbooks, and I think I can do it. And I really want to be a physicist, And he says, I tell you what, if you go back to your school and bring me a letter from your principal saying this is okay, I'll let you in to college. His idea was he's never going to come back with a letter from his principal. Who would do that? 2 weeks later, I came back with a letter from my principal because I was doing very well in school. And I said, you told me that if I brought a letter, you'd let me in. So he says, okay, fine. But you cannot start off with physics because, you have to start off with math, algebra first before you get to physics. I said, fine, So he let me into an algebra class. The first day of class, I was in a room in the front with a bunch of kids, that were like 18, 20 years old. And he put an equation on the board. And he says, who can solve this? And of course, I raised my hand. I said, I solved it, right? The problem was that's the last time I ever solved anything in that class. I was a horrible mathematician. I was never going to be a physicist. So I dropped out of college in the 7th grade. Now, that didn't stop me, actually, much. Because, I knew I could be a doctor, maybe. And in fact, I had a brilliant idea. I said, if one arthritis medication is good, then going to the pharmacy and combining 5 can make it 5 times as good, right? Bengay, whatever. Put them together, it's going to be 5 times better. So that's what I did. And unfortunately, a lady who tried this said, I was healed. Your medication healed me. I said, hey, why not sell it? So I put an ad in the paper, started to sell it. Soon I had a line of cars around the block at my house saying, where is this medication? Well, I started selling it. But pretty soon, something called the health department showed up and asked my grandmother, where is this little Dr. Avalos? Because I was known as little Dr. Avalos. And said, there he is. And I came out like that with that kind of a smock. And he says, he sat me down. He was very gentle, actually, because now they probably would think I'm making meth or something. I wasn't, He sat me down on the curb of the house road, and he said, you can't do this. We have what's called a cease and desist kind of order here. You can't do this. So I wasn't taken to jail, but I had to stop. So now with my science career completely in tatters, I decided to become a missionary. Now, of course, not just a missionary, but the greatest missionary since St. Paul, right? Can't just be mediocre. So I started to encounter Jehovah's Witnesses who Very fascinating because, I was a Trinitarian. I believe, God existed in three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And they were Unitarians. They didn't believe that. And of course, I was confident and said, well, what about John 1:1, And in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So there. I said, no, your Bible's mistranslated. It doesn't say the Word was God. It says the Word was a God. Because you don't know Greek, and that's why you have these Trinitarian ideas. Well, I thought, okay, I need to learn Greek and Hebrew to defeat these, non-believers. And I was too poor to go to Hebrew school. There was a Hebrew school in Phoenix, too poor to go, too far to go, didn't have a car. So I decided to teach myself Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, a whole bunch of other stuff, and mowed lawn to buy the books. So every day after high school, that's what you would see me do. I'm studying Greek and Aramaic. And my mom worried, actually, for my mental health. She's like, why are you doing that? Don't you want to play with kids? No, I want to study Aramaic because I know. Very hard to explain to your parents. So the ultimate result was that Bible study made me an unbeliever. After studying a lot, trying to defeat every argument atheists could throw at me, I eventually realized I don't have any better evidence than anyone else. And actually, my first defection was to Calvinism. And Calvinism led me to reject Pentecostalism, and then the road to hell opened up. So, yes, by my first year of college, I realized that I was an atheist. And so I still wanted to be a biblical scholar, a biblical archaeologist, actually, out in the field, out in the Middle East. And so I went to the University of Arizona, which is in Tucson, and at that time had probably the best biblical archaeology program in the country under William Deaver. And so I went there. That's the reason I went there. And my first semester there, I developed this cold. And then this cold would not go away. It's like October, and it's like I still have it in November, I still have it in December. And pretty soon, by early of 79, I had these nosebleeds that required emergency room visits, And all the doctors would say, well, I don't know what it is, And then by June, my eyes, both of them, were completely like tomatoes. Conjunctivitis, it was severe. Could not stand even TV light. That severe. I had arthritis from head to toe. Every joint in my body. By the end of 1970, I was like a concentration camp victim. Thin, emaciated, I could hardly stand, and I had to be in a darkened room because of the conjunctivitis. By early 1980, they had to rush me to the hospital, and because I was coughing just nonstop, 24 hours a day, just nonstop. And nobody had told me for a year what that was. Nobody could figure it out. They put me in this room with a steel door because they thought, it must be contagious. We don't know what that is. And I was near death. I'm dying, So, yes, at the age of 21, I had this thing called Wagner's Granulomatosis. No, not called that anymore, because it turns out Wagner was a Nazi who discovered it. Don't want to be named after him. They call it granulomatosis with Polyangiitis. It is an autoimmune disease where the body reacts against itself. It's probably the cold trigger that reaction. And in 1958, patients with what I had an 82% mortality rate at 1 year, and an average patient survival of 5 months. I probably had it 15 months by the time they caught it. So yeah, I was about as near death as you can get, when they caught it. It is treatable, but depends on what stage you're at. And I was at a very bad stage. But it was treatable. And so now what happens? Well, I had to drop out of university. Actually, they kicked me out for not attending. I lost my apartment, lost my job. My wife lost her job, my first wife. And then we went back to live in my grandmother's living room. In that house, which looks better than the version a few years before that. This photo is from Google. Well, I didn't give up. I said, I'm going to turn this problem into an opportunity. I had a year, pretty much all of 1980 to recover. What I'm going to do is relearn the languages I learned in high school. And I'm going to go and ask professors if they will give me their final exam, if they will give me a year's credit for that course, because I want to make up time. So I went and approached the professor of Greek, and I said, if I pass your final examination, would you give me credit for first year Greek? And he had to hesitate. Well, I guess if you pass it, you must know it. So he gave me the exam, I passed it. I said, how about second year Greek? Could you do that? Well, if you pass it, I got it. I took that and passed that. Did that for Hebrew, did that for biology, did that for German, did that for a few other subjects. So I completed my sophomore, junior, and senior years in 3 semesters. And 45 credits in the first semester back, which was a record in my department. And one of the professors, the one that gave me the Hebrew exam, I believe, said, you should be at Harvard because that's where the best biblical scholarship is being done. And so that's how I got there. So I started out there in 1983. I started out relatively healthy. I mean, I was just recovering from that first bout I had. And Wagner's returned again in 84. And I had a tumor removed from my throat, And then, I was breathing well again. And then in 86, it came back again. And this time it was really bad. And I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. They actually used the same stuff they use on cancer, but it's not cancer. It's cytoxin mixed with prednisone and methotrexate and other things that they use. So every 6 hours, they would have to give it to me in the hospital. In between, I had to beg the doctors, let me go to class. So, I get a treatment at the hospital and then go to class and come back for the treatment. Go home to write my papers, come back to the hospital around midnight, and next dose is at 6. That was my life for 3 weeks at that place. So, yeah, I actually gave one of my graduate presentations with an IV, well in my arm. And the doctor, one of them said, you're going to die in 2 years unless you have major lung surgery. So it's not 6 months here. He gave me 2 years to think about this, right? So, I was just like in my second year of my PhD program, and I said, oh, dude, should I go back home and just, live out my 2 years? Or should I finish my PhD? Well, I decided to go ahead and try to finish it. And Harvard was very good. They're very wealthy. They have an endowment of like $37 billion. Their budget is larger sometimes than the state of Iowa's budget. So they provided oxygen for me 13 hours a day, a van to take me to class, a research assistant to go get stuff for me. They were very good. And that's how I got through. I lived to get my PhD. They were wrong about the 2 years. I didn't die in 2 years. I got my PhD in 1991, became the first Mexican American to receive a PhD in Hebrew Bible there. But no one would hire me because I was so disabled. I mean, I'm not what you, in those years, I was a totally different person. I mean, I was constantly gasping for air. I couldn't walk more than a few feet without having to stop. It was really a very miserable physical existence. So I had to do a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of North Carolina where they didn't require teaching. I could just research, and I didn't have to teach, although I did teach for a semester. And it was very horrible to teach under those circumstances. Same thing again, when that postdoctoral fellowship ended at the end of 2 years, I was no job. No job except for Iowa State University, who asked me, what do you need exactly? I was upfront about, I'm disabled. And they could see I'm disabled. I said, well, I need a classroom close to my office so that I don't have to walk far. Fine, we can do that. I need a parking space close to my building so I don't have to walk far. Oh, fine, we can do that. And I need a research assistant to run around campus for me. We can do that. And that's how I came to Iowa State in 93. And I've been there ever since. But in 95, Wagner's came back again, worse than ever. In 95, I was choking to death every other day I would be taken to the emergency room because, as they later found out, I had a tracheal tumor that reduced my airway to 1.9 millimeters. And this is magnified, by the way, a lot. 1.9 millimeters is a pinhole. That's what I was breathing through. Any phlegm, any mucus chokes me immediately. And so there were seconds where I thought I'm going to die. I didn't have 6 months to think I'm terminal. No, I'm going to die in the next few seconds here because I cannot clear this. And choking, believe me, it's a horrible way to go. Now, I had about 12% breathing just generally normal. You're bedridden, you're immobile. You're not going to do anything. You're not going to do much when they finally told me what they were going to do. So one day, I had to go to the University of Iowa Hospital down here, and a group of doctors hovered over me. Always a bad sign when a group of doctors hovers over you. One doctor is okay, you don't know. A group, not good. And they said, your airway is so small, 1.9 millimeters, we can't even get anesthesia, gas anesthesia into you. We have to open you up while you're fully awake. Fully awake. So yes, this is the fun part. We're going to put a local anesthesia in your throat, but that's it. You're going to be fully awake while we're working on you. Okay, fine. They put this blue napkin over my face, and they put the local anesthesia, and so far so good, and then I could feel them start opening me up. And the local anesthesia didn't work that long. And now I was in the most severe pain you've ever felt because they actually ripped part of the lining of the lung as they were doing this. And I was in undescribable pain. By that point, I was opened up, and now they could put gas and put me out. I woke up with a whole bunch of hoses coming out of me, right? In ICU. So the spring was much better. By the spring of 1996, I was named Professor of the Year for all of Iowa State in a petition initiated by Christian students. I had one more surgery in 97, and the tumor has not returned since then. I've pretty much been the same since 97. I got better and better. I was like Benjamin Buttons. I felt like an old man in my 20s and 30s, from physical disability. And I started to feel better and look like Brad Pitt now, so it's not a bad thing, right? But that's not all, How about bladder cancer? So yes, in 2012, after a lot of pain, and it's like, oh, why am I hurting so much? Yeah, well, you have bladder cancer. That's what you got. And unfortunately, I'm one of those people that they can't use anesthesia very well. So yes, they used anesthesia to cut off the tumor in the bladder. They didn't have to cut off the bladder, just the tumor. But after I wake up, there's no anesthesia for you. Why? Well, because first of all, you have bad reactions to opiates. So, morphine, I can't give you that. Secondly, the other stuff that's an alternative will hurt your kidneys, and you have kidney disease. Can't give you that. So here's some Tylenol and some pyridium. See what you can do. And well, it doesn't do much. At that point, when I woke up from that surgery, I thought, let me die now. I never want to go through this again, right? Now, I've had cancer, and I've had Wagner's. Wagner's I still rate as 10 times worse than cancer because of all the things that it does, So the pain lasted a couple of days, that's severe. Wagner's lasts for a long time. Now, this is why I'm a better atheist after that. First of all, those experiences confirm that mythological beings are not going to help you. Nope. I have a whole lecture on why prayer doesn't work, and I won't give you that. But no, mythological beings won't help you. People help you. Medical science is what I saw help me. All the prayers, God knows you're sick. He can cure you. He knows ahead of time you're going to be sick. There's no point to having an omniscient God who can't help you ahead of time. So no, I saw people helping me. I saw medical doctors. I saw my family, etc. And it also helped me to be a better person. Why? Because I don't spend my time working on an afterlife that I don't know exists. I live to improve the world that I live in and that I do know exists, right? There's no point. It's a waste of time. Like giving your money and your time to praying like 4 hours a day for a world that you don't know exists. Give your time to a world you know exists. So near death, yes, makes me use the time I have more wisely. In 1980, when I was, recovering, and I got depressed a little bit, but I said, okay, I'm going to use this time to relearn these languages and to get back to school. I didn't give up, right? So I tried to enjoy every minute I have instead of lamenting the years I've lost. You can't get those back. What you can do is enjoy every minute from here until you die. And in my case, I live on an annual basis. It's every year. It used to be every 6 months. I would get a checkup for the bladder cancer because recurrence is very high. I know I'm going to get it back again at some point. So now it's every year. I live my life 1 year at a time. That's it. And so I don't plan to live long. I just plan for the next cytoscopy. And then, if they say you have cancer, I really don't know what I'm going to do. I could say, I don't want to go through that pain again. Just let me go. And I do have directives and all of that in place. Do not resuscitate orders, all that. So, but can one live a productive, limited life with a limited lifespan? Well, I've written 10 books to educate human beings. I have thousands of students educated at Iowa State. Educating the public as well as part of my mission by writing columns, essays, etc. And I founded the ISU Agnostic Society, Atheist and Agnostic Society, 99, probably the oldest with that name in Iowa. They used to tell me, don't use atheists, people won't join. Now it's very common. I have no problems with people joining, calling themselves atheists. More and more do so. And it was meant for these non-religious students that didn't have a place. So this is why I support death with dignity. I want the right to control my own body and destiny. And yes, it's not just if you're told you have 6 months to live. I want to control it at every point of my life. I believe in assisted suicide. I believe in rational suicide at any point of my life. Each person knows what level of suffering and pain they can bear. That's why this cowardly kind of charge doesn't hold. You really don't know what you're going to do until those last few seconds where you have to make that decision. I'm going to choke, I'm going to die, live it. Or I want to die, I want to live, the pain is so great. The pain is so great, I want to die now. Or no, I'm going to fight some more. It's second by second sometimes when you're in that situation. So yes, it makes me have more empathy for those with pain. I know, can never really experience the pain of others, but I know what it's like to be in a hell of a lot of pain. So, and I understand families are co-patients, Families suffer with you. There's so much stress, they can have physical problems just trying to help you, especially when it's a prolonged illness. So, non-believers in death, well, non-believers, for the most part, they have a life centered on this world, not the next. Morality is about empathy, not about a future reward. In fact, most unbelievers, or many, would say it's actually immoral to be good because you have a reward. It's like a bribe to be good. You're good because you have empathy for others suffering, right? And of course, it's not that there are no kinds of concerns or fears about death with dignity kind of bills. For one is, what if the society starts expecting you to die, because there's not enough money to take care of you. So it's not that someone's, legally telling you got to die. But what if the society comes to a point where it says, you've been here long enough, we don't really want to take care of you, that kind of thing. That's one of the concerns. And then, physicians can be wrong. They were wrong with me. A couple times. They don't always know. They're making an educated guess sometimes. So, if I had said, okay, kill me now, I don't want to go through this, well, it turned out he was wrong. I had a few more years left. So, but, I think with safeguards, you can address those kinds of concerns. It doesn't mean I don't support dying with dignity kind of bills. In some, near death did not result in resentment or lamentation for my situation. I'm not an embittered atheist. A lot of people, oh, well, you became an atheist because you got sick. No, I became an atheist before I got sick. I always have to tell them that, It resulted in finding ways to use my time more wisely. Life is not just about longevity. I don't care if I live to 100. I care, did I achieve the experiences I wanted to in life? Your bucket list. If you did it by the age of 50, fine, you're done. If it took you 60 years, fine, But I live by what experiences do I want in life, and then, just fulfill those, and, then if that's done, well, go on to the next, my 11th book would be my one, right? So, yes. And by the way, my grandma did make it to Harvard. That's her. With my nephew and my stepdad. So, the lie that there are no atheists in foxholes is not true. I am an atheist who's been in many foxholes, figuratively. And so, I can tell you personally that holding up Stonehenge is far more difficult than it looks. It does. All right. Any questions? Any quick questions? Because I think we're out of time, but I might take a question. Any questions? Yes.
I'd like to say thank you for sharing. What a fantastic life story.
Thank you. Yes.
When you were suffering physically, were you also suffering depression, or was that a big factor?
Well, I am actually the kind of person that I'm depressed in the moment I'm in pain. But once it's done, I'm back to what's the next thing? I really don't look back. It's the main lesson is don't look back. Go on to the next thing because it's a waste of energy. Yes.
Did you ever at any time when you were going through all of this think about God again?
Never did I go back. In fact, the first time I was really ill, that's exactly what my parents and my family thought. Oh, this is going to bring him back. This is God telling you. No, it only confirmed that mythological beings don't help you. What did I see help me? Medical science, That's what I saw help me. Why am I crediting someone I'd never seen do anything? And then taking credit away from the people that are in front of me, right? That makes no sense to me. Here is somebody, putting an IV in me, giving, that's the person helping me. Why am I crediting this invisible being I've never seen do anything? Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. Yes.
Clearly you get atheists and agnostic students who appreciate what you're doing in that state. You have students who are so profoundly religious that they have trouble accepting you in any way.
No, not really, because my evaluations are actually quite high. Just in general, I get like 80, 70, 80% of the highest ratings. It's not that there aren't any. I'm sure there are. Maybe in 23 years I've had maybe 2 or 3 that expressed it in some way, but not really. Most of the people that are against me are outsiders. Not. In fact, it's truer even now because now they know I'm an atheist. So if they want to take my class, it's not mandatory they take it. They just want to take it. And I teach all the Bible classes. So they don't have to take my classes. They want to. And like I say, the people that nominated for Professor of the Year were not atheists. They were Christian students. Any other questions? Am I out of time? Pretty much. Any other questions? Okay, one.
I got afflicted with Bell's palsy, so I don't talk probably normal a bit. But I just finished rereading a book by Christopher Hill, and it was about the topic of English history. it was about people like John Milton and James Harrington and other great thinkers back in the 1640s who thought they could create something new and something wonderful, but they were all defeated. We all are defeated in life in big and small ways, and it is a kind of dying because you have to give up. You know, I like Bernie Sanders. I would rather see him president than any of these other goons. But you have to give up on your dreams, and you have to give up on your hopes, and you have to give up on your bucket list tonight. I agree with you about the way I see the world. I saw my old mom and dad into their late 90s when they died, and they had beautiful deaths. They didn't worry about where they were going. They were just happy I was with them. I really appreciated your talk. I guess I never ask questions when I talk, but I do. I'm really glad I struggled up here to hear you.
All right, thank you. All right, well, thank you very much. I really appreciated the whole symposium and all the speakers, so hope we can do it again.
Thank you all so much for coming. Like I said, feel free to socialize a little bit. We do have a room till 6. We'll just kind of start packing up. Yeah.
Who said they had the forms for main directives?
Here, Kay Becker. So, thank you all for coming.
I take a mic from you, sir.
Yes.
Just a pin here, and it runs into one of your pockets, I believe.
Yeah, really good.